Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to have you all here. Hope you all staying home and staying safe. Uh, the kind of time that we all have now on our hands, especially as golfers, it's a great time and a great opportunity for all to use this time in the best possible way. So, what I would like to go over today with all of you is something I work very closely with: setup and alignment. If you all think of it, setup and alignment are two things which are a very static part of the game. So I know we all love working with swing, we love working with our positions, we like looking like top players in the world. The fact is that if you don't have a fundamentally sound setup and you're not aligned correctly, your swing cannot function efficiently. So the first thing that I would look at in a good setup is one, posture. Just a basic posture. It's how you stand. Been teaching for so many years now, and a lot of players, beginners, club golfers, even some professionals, when they come up and they just stand, not the professionals as such, but yes, the beginners and the club golfers, we all see a little bit of a slouch, shoulders really forward that way. So the first thing I would do in a setup is I'd just get a person looking really confident, right? Body language is the first thing, as they say. You see, all top players in the world have a great body language. So starting with an absolute square, straight setup there, standing absolutely straight, shoulders retracted. The second step I see a lot of players doing is just bending the knees. So I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see that a little later. For now, let's think about it. What is what is a good posture? A good posture is a athletic starting position that can deliver an efficient golf swing. For example, if I'm someone who's standing with too much weight on my heel, there's a chance when I take my backswing, I will try and counter it to either go forward or I'll lose my balance. Similarly, the other way. Coming back, let's go a step back. What controls direction? Your grip, right? Because the grip controls the club face. Now, if you have a correct grip, your club face is on target, but your setup and your lines are not on target. What would you achieve? You would achieve a shot which is not going on target. So while you have your club face on target, you also want all your other lines, which is your shoulders, starting from your eye line, your shoulders, your chest, your hips, your knees, and your feet almost parallel to each other. That's what we're looking for. Let's look at what happens in a very common problem that a lot of you would relate to. I see this happen very often. I have this good 12 handicap calling me and saying, Akhil, my swing is over, it's done, and all is lost, and my golf game is over. And because I've taught the gentleman before, I know that more often than not, it would be a setup or an alignment problem. But in his head, he feels that suddenly he's not, setting it up right at the top. His positions are off. It's doomsday for his golf swing. So we go on the range, and this has happened multiple times with me. We go on the range, and this gentleman is aiming about 30 yards right with his shoulders, which is clearly, if he was to go, let's say at the Callaway golf bag, his shoulders are going here. And now what he's doing from there is he's consistently, and he's a good player, so he knows how to bring the ball back. He's hitting these 30, 25, 30-yard hooks and still managing to score and managing to play. But what he's doing is he's inculcating a bad habit, which is related to the setup and not the golf swing. So if you were to divide the setup um, and the golf swing, the setup and alignment are statics of the golf swing, which are far easier to control than the swing in motion, because the swing in motion takes about 1 second, maybe 0.75 seconds for your backswing and 0.25 to complete the swing from there. It is so quick that if you think of it, can you really control positions in the golf swing? But if you do have a sound setup with your lines in place, with your posture in place, with your weight distribution in place, there is a very strong chance that you will have a repeatable golf swing and consistent contact. And these are two things that we all look for: hitting the ball on target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a few things with which we think of in the setup, but it's also relative. Think of ball position. So I see a lot of players standing and then having that right hip a little higher, and then they go into that sort of a motion, and they're consistently thinking and trying from there to get into that position, which will never happen because the start of their golf swing is incorrect, which is their setup. What I would do is, for all of you, if you were to just look at checkpoints, what are we looking for? Which hand on the grip is lower? Clearly your right hand. So if the right hand on the grip is lower, everything on the right side should also automatically get lower. It's just very, very natural. In terms of position of the ball for different clubs. Now, if I was to hit a driver and have the ball position back in the stance, you know where that club is going. Similarly, if I was to hit a 9-iron or a pitching wedge and have the ball position this way, we know where that club is going. So we're also altering the alignment of our shoulders, which is clearly altering the club path. What we want to do is have all our lines as parallel. So let's try and get one line, 1, 2, hip line, the knee line, all parallel to each other, and have that line parallel to the ball to target line. Because that is one thing that will ensure that we are able to repeat the golf swing and are able to bring that club face square to the ball to the target line. A little later on, I will also give you a few drills that I like doing on the range, because what happens on the range with all of us is we just standing straight and hitting golf balls. And the moment we go on the golf course, the orientations change. So you're hitting dog legs, you're hitting shots which are, the hole starts right and then it's going left. You could have a tee shot that's going left. So an easier way of doing this is if you can take your course practice to the range in terms of setting it up to different targets, it'll become a lot easier. And I'll give you a very, later, I'll give you a very simple drill that I do on the range. I do it with a lot of players, and it seems to work very well. What I'd like to do next with all of you is I'm going to change the camera angle a bit, and I'm going to show you just how we
Sir, just to interrupt you, I think your audio has muted. If you can unmute it.
Sorry.
Yeah, now clear.
Okay, so we were talking about these two lines on the ground. These would be, one would be the ball to target line, which is my blue shaft here. And the other line would be the purple shaft here, which is my feet line, to which I'm going to try and align my knees, my feet, my chest, and my shoulders. Let's think of a simple mistake that a lot of us do. Golf for me is probably the only target sport in the world where you're really not looking to, you don't have the luxury of being behind the target. So it is almost, it is a sport where you need to align parallel to your target, which makes it very difficult because we all have different orientations. We all have dominant eyesight. It becomes that much harder. So the easiest way of at least ensuring that you're close is I would try and pick a point which is about 4 to 6 inches ahead of the golf ball, in line of the intended target that I want to play for. So if I'm able to align my club to this point, which is only 6 inches away, it is much easier for me to align this club to the target versus trying to align something which is 140, 150, 160 yards away. This makes it that much simpler. Secondly, a lot of a very fundamental mistake that I see even good players make is, if you look at professionals, they will always come down and get the club down first. This is something I very strongly advocate. You have to have the alignment born out of the club face and not out of your feet. So what happens with a lot of club golfers and even the high handicappers is they come in, they plant their feet down, and then they put their club face down. So if you look at a setup like that, even though my club is going to the target, my feet and my shoulders, my chest, everything is going way right of target. Now, what this is going to lead to is a path which is going more inside. I will throw it out, and either I'm going to flip it to bring it back, or I'll have a push or a slice. Also, what happens in a lot of these shots is when you hit a ball which is absolutely straight, let's say 30 yards right of target with no movement, you just probably you made a perfect swing just to the wrong place because you were not aligned correctly. So what we would want to try and do is, as a rule, as a fundamental rule for all of you, try and align your club face first. It is something that I don't think anyone in the world will not teach you. All the top pros do it. First, get your club face, have a nice sound grip, square club face. Get your club face aligned to that little point that you can pick a grass blade or anything that you can, which stands out. Once you've done that, then you get your feet nicely opened up, and then you get into your setup. So this way, at least we ensure that the chances of us aligning are a lot more stronger. Not just stronger, more efficient. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at higher efficiency, and we're looking at being able to produce that result. That is between just off the topic. So a lot of players who come in, I'm sure a lot of the teachers here. Sorry, I'm going to move the camera. So coming back to this, a lot of the teachers ask their students, and a feedback that comes to me very often is, Akhil, you know what? I've been playing golf for 1 year, 2 years, 9 months, and I'm not consistent. So consistency is, let's get real. If you want to get consistent, you're not looking at hitting every ball 10 feet from the flag. So people go out on the range, they see a flag, they hit the ball 15 feet left or right, and they crib that they haven't hit it straight. Now, the fact is that if you were to take the golf course and take a green, which is, let's say, about 30, 40 yards wide, and you would hit the ball on, you'd be a very happy person. So this is just off the topic, but just to give everyone a realistic sense of setting realistic goals. Consistency for me is to be able to produce for a club golfer shots between 6 on 10 and 9 on 10 is good enough and is consistent in terms of contact, in terms of direction. You will not hit every ball straight. Anyways, that was part one, which we did with alignment. Now let's look at the setup, basic setup and weight distribution. So a lot of different thoughts in it. A little bit of personal feel is always there in golf. There's no hard and fast rule of 49% and 51%. But yes, we need to be there is a broad line rule, and we stick within that, and then we do our own preferences. So what I like to feel is it's also very relative again to ball position. If I've got a club which is more in the middle, let's say a pitching wedge where I'm setting up with the ball position in the middle, I'm also looking at the weight is more or less equal. Even though personally I like starting a little off my left foot, a little bias of my left foot for mid irons, it just helps me bounce off easier on my backswing. It's like a little trigger for me. But most of us would feel that. Second, we would look at how our shoulders are lined up. Now we see a lot of us have that tightness in the right shoulder, and you can see what that's going to do. The moment you got that right shoulder up and tight, even though your alignment is square, the club's going to go this way. So it's very important, again, to get those shoulders nicely retracted, down, stand straight, arms out, get a nice hip hinge in your setup, a little bit of a flex of the knees. Again, we're not looking to bend the knees. We're just looking to flex the knees. And if you all do this at home or at the club, whenever you're practicing, the moment you extend out hip hinge and you flex, you will feel this inherent connection with the ground. And not just personally with the experience and even myself, I mean, I try and work a lot on my own swing. The more connected I am at setup with the ground, the more stable I feel in my golf swing. And I feel it's the chances of me getting more consistent contact becomes higher given all the other parameters obviously being met and staying consistent. So let's do that again. Retracted shoulders. A second checkpoint for me would be my right elbow. I would always like to see my right elbow a little under my left. So there should be a little bit of visibility of my left forearm when I'm setting up. Because that for me is, again, I mean, it's just, again, you cannot control the dynamics if your statics are not in place. So let's look at the setup once more. Straight out, hip hinge, a little flex down. Now from here, once I know all my lines are correct, yes, I need to create a good, solid, rhythmic golf swing to produce a good result. But the chances are a lot more that I will be able to do this. So again, a very, very important aspect of the setup is how do you feel your weight? It's not technical, but just to give you an insight into how do you feel your weight at the top of your backswing. Now, if your setup is more to the toes, and you're going back, either you will go this way. So basically, you're looking at a two-way miss, and we want to create this miss into a one-way miss. The only way of ensuring that we are able to do it is that we keep our setup, our standing, our static absolutely in place. So as a very strong piece of advice, I would ask all of you to do a lot of work, spend more time on your setup and lesser time trying to just practice your golf swing. Because if you get your lines in place, I mean, I don't know if you've heard stories of Jack Nicklaus used to go back every summer to his coach Jack Grout just to have his setup check over and over again. And that just revalidates that, you know, the greatest players in the world are still looking at the most fundamental parts of the golf swing, and setup for me being probably the most important one. Okay. I'm going to take you through a few drills, especially this one, which I really like. So I call this the target drill, where you can pick random targets. My golf ball's right here. What I like doing is I would take about a dispersion of 80 yards if your range is wide enough. At DLF, we have a extremely wide golf range. And I would put these tees at 3 to 4 different points, aiming at different targets. What this is going to give me and what this will help me achieve is every time I'm on the golf course, I'm not looking to hit the same target over and over again. I've got shots to the right and shots to the left. So if you, unless you're in block mode or you're working on a particular move in the golf swing, I would advise everyone to do a lot of alignment work on the range and do it with a complete pre-shot routine that you already have. So let's say you have your 10 second or 15 second pre-shot routine. You do that, you come back, and then you start aligning one ball to the right. And then you get your setup in place and you hit that. Then you go one ball to the left and then one to the middle. And you can have 4 or 5 targets depending on what you'd like. Now, the advantage of doing this is, one, it gives you a sense of, I won't call it weakness. I don't like, that's a negative word, but it'll give you a sense of your strong side. So a lot of us are more comfortable hitting shots where the orientation of the golf ball is to the right. A lot of us like hitting shots to where the orientation is to the left. Now, this gives us a very good idea into our strength and into our weakness. Shouldn't be using that word. Once you have a good idea of where you're finding it hard, then you can get maybe a friend or your coach or, just as feedback. You can go back and start working on why you are having a tougher time aiming to targets on the right, and why is it easier for you to aim targets which are left, and vice versa. So this is a very a good drill. It just helps you pick different targets on the range. It also, another thing it helps you do is it helps you slow down. Um, I have had guys who are like machines on the in a lesson. I mean, we have 50 balls in a basket, and by the time you're 15 minutes in, we've done with one basket. I mean, for me, if you would ideally do it right, you would take your time. You should not be able to hit more than 15-20 balls in half an hour. That's also on the plus side if you do it right. So putting a lot of work into setting it up the right way, putting a lot of work into having your lines in place, being aware. That's probably the most important thing. Being aware of your own body and how it lines up, and then trying to improve the other areas, which is really going to help. Now, if you look at, I'll give you a very small example of something that I have a problem with my putting, and it's not the stroke again. And I realized over a period of time that it is born again out of. I'm not going into putting, just giving you an insight into alignment. Even on a 5-foot putt, when I think I'm standing square, I think, to the best of my awareness and my feel, I'm actually aiming about 6 inches left. Sometimes it's happened with me. I mean, I've corrected it because of drills and stuff, but my level of confidence, and I'm sure a lot of us see this, is so high that no, you know what, my alignment is in place and I'm absolutely fine. But there's something wrong with my swing. So these are small instances that have cropped up over the last couple of years since I've been teaching for my own self, my students, and I do realize that if we are able to correct this, I think we can really develop a very strong, sound, solid golf swing. Obviously, considering your dynamics and your other parts of the swing are working fine, but that would be my number one and most important part. Let's now look at a few swing issues before we go down to. So when I say swing issues, how do you develop these bad habits? Someone who's standing at the target, I'm repeating this, but it's important for us to understand, and has not come back to either his coach or taken help or have the most important thing, which I know the entire coaching fraternity and all my friends advocate very heavily, is putting down alignment stick. Uh, Unfortunately, we all do it in a lesson, but the moment we're out there on the range, when the coach is not watching and there's no one looking at you, you're back to feeling like, you know what, I'm the pro and I have all the alignments set. So very strong. I advocate using an alignment stick every time you go out there and practice. And you will see all better players. We see it at the major championships, at the Opens. They've all got their alignment sticks down. They're so far ahead of all of us, but if they can do it, I'm sure we can all take out time and do it. All right, let's go back to the basic two errors that I see in the swing with, especially your shoulders. So feet, I'm still open to having your feet a little left or right, not too much, slightly right or left of target, depending on the kind of shape you're looking at. But for me, shoulders, my hip line, and my eye line, these are three areas which, like especially my eye line, it's so important because I see a lot of people when they look at targets. If you think of it, and if you were to look at a target and go this way, your orientation is very different to the way you turn your head, which is just this way. So if you think of putting, if you think of any other part of the game, when you're looking at a shorter target, obviously not the longer ones, when you look at that target, it's just a tilt of the head this way. The head is actually not going that way, because the moment it goes that way, another thing that comes out of that is a lot of people saying, "No, Akhil, I'm standing correctly," and they're doing this. See, I'm aiming to the target and I'm fine. Whereas if you think of it, they're about 30 yards left of target. So again, coming back to shoulders going right, feet going left, is going to create a lot of inside and out motion. Shoulders going left is going to create a lot of outside in sort of a motion, and also ball position. So if I take a 9 iron and I put the ball forward, look what it's doing to the orientation of my shoulders. It's actually pulling it way left. And now again, the chances I'm going to be swinging on that line. That's for your alignment and ball position. But think of one more very, very important aspect of a fundamental mistake that we all make while setting up. So there, and now this is, I see this happen more with the driver than any other club. I see guys just going ball on the left heel. Okay, now what do I need to do? I need to just go tilt and bend. But if you just think of pure logic, shoulder tilt, there are two reasons why your shoulders are tilting. One is that the right hand is lower on the grip. So you can see the right hand lower, right knee, right foot, everything's lower. If you look at ball positions in terms of a pitching wedge, my shoulders look more level. And if I just drag my club to the driver setup, there is a natural turn and a tilt in my shoulders. Now, what you don't want to do is try and make that look very, I won't say artificial, as in you're really not in that position, but you're trying to just feel it because someone told you that your right shoulder needs to be a lot lower. Yes, it does, but there is a more natural way of doing it. And this really, really helps me get a consistent setup for the driver, and I will not make compensation. So wherever you create a variable, there will be a compensation there. I would like to stop at that for now and get a few questions in if possible, and then we can go towards the end and do a few other drills that I have for you.
Okay, there are a few questions. The first question is, what is a pivot?
What is a pivot? Pivot is a point around which you're looking to rotate. So if you look at sport like basketball, if you look at sport like there's a point of which you're bouncing off. So for me, if I'm turning on my golf swing, I need to have a point which is stable around which I'm going to turn. So that point becomes my pivot. That's my pivot right there.
The next question is how to align for a draw, shot, and fade.
Okay, so two factors. If you're looking, let's look at the draw first. A draw is a ball that starts right of target, slightly right of target, and then it comes back onto target. So the first thing I personally like doing for a draw is have my shoulders aiming a little right of target. So my feet line. So overall alignment is set up a little to the right. What do you want your club face to do? You want it to bring the ball back. A lot of good players can do it with the open club face, slightly open club face. But if you want to just hit a draw, have your club face marginally closed, marginally. And this is for the club golfer. Have your shoulders aiming a little right, and then you just make a swing along your shoulder line. So if you're going, so let me just show you the line from here. So if let's say this is my target, and if I want to hit a draw, I'm going to get my shoulders or get my basic alignment a little right of that target line, which is here. I will get my shoulders my club face a little closed. So what will happen is when I swing this club, the ball will start somewhere between these two lines, and then it will slowly curve towards the target. That's how I would like to play a simple draw. I mean, there are players who like playing it with an open face as well. And then there's Tiger Woods who does it at different levels. Similarly, if I want to play a fade, I will align my shoulders a little more open, have my club face also a little more open. This will help me start the ball. The ball will start in between where my face and my path is, and path is dictated by your shoulders. So I would have a slightly open setup for my fade to the target and have a slightly closed setup for the draw to my target. Yeah.
So the next question is, can you please explain from P1 to P8?
From
P1 to P8. Can you please explain from P1 to P8?
I didn't get that question. Sorry.
Okay. So the next question is the advice not to have more weight on the toes during the setup? Sir, your audio is not audible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it advisable not to have?
Is the advice not to have more weight on the toes during setup?
So ideally, you need to find at setup. You need to find a very athletic position. So I would not say toes, but what I call is what I look at is balls of the feet, which is somewhere towards the just short of the toes. That's where I would like a good starting position. So if you look at all sport and all athletic setups, they are slightly forward, but at the same time, they are not. If you're on your toe, you're actually not on balance. You're not balanced at all. You need to be somewhere between the center of your feet and the toe, which is balls of your feet, which is an ideal place to start. And as you go along in your backswing, there is the pressure shifts in your under your feet and it moves to different parts, which is obviously a different topic altogether. But yeah, I would say have it in the balls of the feet, feel very connected with the ground, and feel very athletic. So when I say athletic, is don't be that way. Get a little forward hip hinge, and you will see that the weight does come onto the balls of the feet there. Yeah.
The next question is, what is the stance for draw?
Stance for draw. Stance for draw, again, we just did this. Have your shoulders, have your basic setup lines like we spoke about, your parallel lines of shoulders, chest, eye line, aiming a little right of target depending on how much draw you want to create, and have your club face a little closed to that target. So let me explain this to you in a little more simpler way with lines. This will get easier. So if you were to look at these two lines, the blue line being the target line and the purple line being your shoulder alignment, and the shaft here being the club face. You've got three lines here. If you want to create a draw, the first thing you're looking at is starting the ball right of target. That's the first thing that I would look at to bring it back in. So if I can get my club face somewhere around the shaft here, aiming there, have my shoulders aiming somewhere around the purple shaft, and then just make a swing along my shoulder line, the ball will start somewhere there and it will curve towards the target. So the easiest way to perceive that is have a slightly closed cup face, aim your shoulders right of target, depending on the kind of draw you want, and then just make a nice, good rhythmic swing along that line. Yeah.
The next question is, should the weight be evenly distributed through the feet, toes to heel? Should the weight be evenly distributed through the feet, toes to heel?
The weight in it, see, it also depends on the club that you're hitting. I mean, by the time you get to a driver, I would say if you're playing a wedge, which is more or less in the middle of your stance, yes, it would be more or less even. Like I said, personally, I like bouncing off my left side, so I like a little more weight on my left. Maybe I do a 55, 45 or a 53, 47. But ideally, for clubs in the middle, it'll be more towards more evenly distributed, like wedges and 9 irons. By the time I get to the driver, and I am more to this side, and I'm leaning more to the right, there's probably a little more pressure towards my right side, which I can feel. And because the driver is a more upward sort of a hit, we don't want too much. We don't want too much weight at the start. I'm not talking about dynamics, but at the start, I would have that weight feeling a little more biased towards my right side, or pressure, whatever you want to call it.
The next question is how to aim properly.
How to aim properly. Okay, that's we did that. Let's take that again. Simplest way to aim. So if I ask you, is it easier to aim to a target which is 150 yards away, or is it easier to aim to a target which is 6 inches away? Obviously, the question is 6 inches. So what I would do is, and this is again something we spoke about initially, is I would have I would pick an like an intermediate target between my ball. I start with the golf ball and my flag, which is 150 yards away. I like picking it up at about 4 inches to 6 inches. I will align my club face to that. Now, obviously, you can't be 100% accurate, but the chances of you aligning to 4 inches, a target which is 4 inches away to a target which is 150 yards away, it's a no-brainer. It's always easier to do this side. So first, get that part going, which is aligning it 4 inches. Once you feel your club face is aligned correctly, then you will get your feet planted. Do not ever get your feet down first. It is the biggest and the most fundamental error I see with a lot of players. You have to have the club face down first to an intermediate target, then open up your feet and think of it's a very old school thing. I read this book on, I follow him also, John Jacob. He used to say that think of yourself standing on a railway track where on one rail is where your feet, your shoulders, your eye line, everything is parallel. And then it is parallel to the second rail, which is your target line. So those two lines are absolutely parallel to start with. This is just simplifying it. And obviously, as you get better, you have preferences of opening up the feet a little. Again, like I said, feet can still be a little open or closed. I'm still okay with that. Not okay with shoulders. Not primarily, it's the club face. So to simplify it, 4 inches to 6 inches, pick a small target, align your club face to that, and then move backwards from there. So that's how you align well and you align square. Yeah.
So the next question is your advice not to have a downward tilt with the driver?
A downward tilt which way? Can you get that question again? Downward tilt at setup and which way?
He hasn't mentioned anything. The question is the advice not to have a downward tilt with the driver?
So I'm assuming that the person here, the gentleman, means that having tilt that way is what I can understand. That's a downward tilt. But again, it depends on what he's asking. In any case, I'll take it from here. So if he's talking about a downward tilt, you cannot have a downward tilt because the driver is probably the only club which you're hitting on an upswing. That's why there's a high tee and you're looking to clip it off. Sir,
I'm just interrupting you. He has written downward tilt with the shoulder setup.
Yes, exactly what I said. So that's what he means. Yes, it is. You cannot have a driver being hit that way. The simple reason is driver is the club with the least amount of loft. We need a tee to get it airborne. Now, if you have to get something airborne, if I ask you to throw a ball really high, you're not going to go this way, right? I mean, if you think of throwing something high, you're actually going to go low and then release it to the other side. So I would ideally have the shoulders, again, do not force it. Allow the ball position to naturally take it to its most tilted position, as I call it. And then you're looking to swing along that line. I always give this to the juniors and they relate to it. All clubs, irons, hybrids, 3-woods are being hit like a plane landing. So if you think of a plane landing, it's a downward angle. Driver is hit like a plane taking off. So if a plane was to take off, it would go this way, right? So a driver has to be hit more that way. And because your shoulders dictate that motion almost completely, you cannot have your shoulders going this way. Hope that clears that out.
There is a question related to putting alignment. Would you suggest to line up the ball while putting, or would the idea of connecting the ball line with the putter take the focus out of the putting process?
Very personal. Now that we've touched on putting, which is something I work on a lot because it's something I struggle with a bit time to time. So with putting, I would say the most important thing is your putter face. You can see that the basic setup for all good players in the world has a lot of common fundamentals. But when it comes to putting, I mean, if you looked at Jack Nicklaus, he was like that. If you look at Tiger's more upright, you look at guys who are really bent over, Adam Scott. So I'll address the ball line on the ball after this. But alignment for putting is, there are two fundamental rules that we follow for putting. Aim the putter correctly and start the ball on line. Now, if you can do that with your, yes, ideally you should have your lines in place, but even if you don't, and you are someone who putts brilliantly with slightly open shoulders, but can aim it correctly and is able to stroke it on line, I'll be the last person to change your putting stroke. To answer your second question, which is the line on the golf ball. Now, for line on the golf ball, again, it's a very personal thing. It's, I've had some really good players, some juniors, these guys I work with, and when we discuss this very often that, so I'm very awkward with the line. Like, I personally really like the line because I like looking at it like that. It's a very personal feel. Some guys get very distracted with it. They don't like it. But if you're a club golfer, you're looking to improve your putting, I think it's a great tool. We've got new golf balls now also, which have lines on them, which are, they're official and you can use them. And there's a reason why people are creating them, because it just helps you align the ball correctly. On a 5-foot putt, if you're going to align 1 inch or 2 inches left, you're never holding that putt. It's not a full shot. So as an advice, yes, please put that line down, align it to, again, a little intermediate target in between your intended line, and go for it. So I would say definitely have a line down.
There is a question. Can you show a good finish position?
Good finish position?
Yes.
My favorite finish position would obviously be Tiger, because I'm a very diehard Tiger Woods fan. But the guy I really like is Tommy Fleetwood also. I like where he finishes. To answer a good finish position, you have to realize we're all differently built people, right? We're all different human beings with different limbs, with different torso lengths, with different strengths in our lower and upper body. So I would not call a very good, perfect looking position. Yes, a position that gets you into perfect balance, where your weight finishes on your left heel. You almost transfer 90% of your weight onto the left side. You'll see it, all the top players have one thing in common. They have the left toe up. So the weight has completely transferred into the left side. Now from there, whether you want to look a bit like that, or you want to look a bit more like where Rory goes all the way back, that's a personal choice. Think of the aesthetics are important, but the aesthetics are secondary. They're not the most important thing. First and foremost is where you're looking to finish that golf swing in the most balanced position. Golf is all about starting in balance, being solid at setup, and finishing in balance. And we will all find our own ideal finish position. Yeah.
Sir, there is a question regarding setup. What is the setup to hit a driver low cut during headwind?
To hit a driver low cut.
Low cut during headwind.
So honestly, I do it in a very simple way. One thing I do is I tee it up a little low. I don't swing the club very hard. So if you want to hit a cut, you realize the cut is going to get more affected and it's going to lose distance massively. So first thing is, if you're playing into wind, I would not really advocate a big cut unless it depends. I don't know what kind of wind situation are you talking about. If it's just headwind or it's a left to right or right to left. But how I like hitting a driver is I put the tee really low and I just swing it. I don't swing it very hard. So I put the tee low. I pull it maybe from my normal driver position. I like having it back about an inch or two. And it's like hitting a driver off the deck. If you see a lot of new players, a lot of good players have started hitting drivers off the deck. I do it myself. It just gives you a very interesting insight into being able to launch that club a little off the ground and yet keeping it low. So
sir, I'm just interrupting you. He has written right to left wind. He just corrected the question.
Right to left. Yeah. So again, go back to setup. What are we looking to do in the setup? We're looking to align the shoulders a little more right of target. Again, keep that tee low. Have your club face feeling a little closed, not too close, slightly closed, maybe about a degree closed than what you would normally have it. And then just swing it easy. Keep that tee really low. see, it's not very easy to hit a draw with a very low tee. Not too many. You have to be skilled to be able to do that. But that's a good way of at least ensuring that the ball is going to start low and then it's going to have hopefully a little draw to it. So a low tee, and don't swing it too hard. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question. Since the weight transfer has to be in the left foot, is it advisable to align our balance to the left leg?
Since the weight, no, that is, again, it's static and dynamic. It's when you set it up, you're looking at almost an even weight. When you're at the top of your backswing, which is you letting go to the top of your backswing, you feel a lot more weight inside, somewhere here and more towards your heel. Then it transits and goes back somewhere around there. A lot of pressure is shifted to the left side, and it automatically will finish towards your left heel. So you don't need to preset, because if you preset, you are not going to be able to wind and unwind. So allow it to start neutral, like we said. It will naturally curve back, shift, and then it will curve back onto your left side. So definitely not advisable to just start from that side and keep weight there only.
Yeah, there is a question. I have a tendency of slicing my driver and have had an issue for a number of years. Apart from this setup, are there any suggestions on some drills I can work on?
Yes, you can. I mean, driver slice is the most common thing that we all encounter in our day-to-day teaching lives. I don't know what you worked with so far to correct it, but again, like I would say, have the right shoulder higher, get the club aiming a little more, and I would say try and swing if you want to really create a draw. Now, I don't know the kind of slice you're hitting. Are you starting the ball? If you can ask this gentleman, is he starting the ball right and slicing it? Is the ball starting left and then slicing to the right? So I need to understand those two things, and I can advise you on what maybe it's not a path issue and maybe it is a path issue. So if you can just ask him and get back to me after the next question.
Sure. The next question is, why do some players aim from the back of the ball?
Why do some players
aim from the back of the ball?
Aim for the back of the ball. Am I hearing that correctly? Back of the ball?
Why do some players aim from the back of the ball? That's what he asked.
Aim from the back of the ball.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Not some. I think everyone should aim from the back of the ball only, because you've got to go back. Like, again, I mean, if you go back to what we've done here, let's go back to that.
Sir, are you there?
I've lost video.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I've lost video here. Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, that's fine. Let's get back to this. Yeah, so
sir, just interrupting you. Going back to the previous question, he has written starts online and slice.
So, starting online and slicing is actually is not such a bad problem, because clearly the gentleman here has got a very square club face at impact. So he's doing most things right. Just let's address this. Sorry, I'm going to have to shift this a couple of times. So starting square means that his club face at impact is absolutely fine. And what he's probably not doing, and we might want to have a look at his grip also when he does. So do check if your grip is too weak, because chances are that if you're square and your grip is too weak, you're unable to turn the hands over and release the club. So what you're doing very well is you're getting to a very square position at impact, but post impact, the club is just not releasing. The club face is still a little, it stays open a little longer than it should to create the slice. What I would tell you to do is try and feel, hoping that your grip is absolutely neutral, try and feel your forearms releasing more through impact. With that, your wrist will also release. You're probably a little bit that way, going through impact with the driver, and that's creating a straight start and then ball slicing to the right side. So do try that and share your feedback.
There's a question, how to not let your go down at the backswing?
How to not let
your go down at the backswing?
How to not go down on the backswing?
Yes, yes.
So my question to that is, why would you not want to go down a little on the backswing? If I was to ask all of you that if you were to stand somewhere and I asked you to jump, are you going to stand there and jump, or are you going to actually go down and jump up? You're creating a reaction from the ground up. So especially when you're loading, if you were to actually, you can do this exercise. You can take the top 100 players in the world, even more. And when you see their face on setup, just draw a line on top of their head. You will see almost 90% of them are actually a little squatted down at the top of their backswing. Because what you're doing is you're feeling more connection with the ground, which will enable you to bounce off and be able to create a lot more speed. So don't try and just stay level on your backswing. There is no connection with the ground there. What you ideally feel is when you're loading in, you actually feel a little bit of that squat, which you see with a lot of top players. So yes, going down a little, maintaining posture is not a bad thing at all.
Is it better to orient your feet while looking at the target for the long game? Sorry, is it better to orient your feet while looking at the target for the long game?
I would look at, again, my shoulders, my eye line, my shoulders. I would work face up, face down, sorry, face. So that's eye line, shoulder line, hip line, knees and feet would be the last. If you've ever seen some good players practicing at your golf ranges, professionals, you'll see a lot of them who hit irons have a very open stance, like in terms of their feet look like they're going left, but everything else is in place. So I wouldn't worry too much about the feet unless I'm hitting a driver, because with the driver, I would like the feet to also go a little right along with the shoulders. That'll help me create that draw that I want.
Can you explain the concept of bounce on wedges and how to use effectively for short chips and bunker play?
Okay. So let's look at what bounce is. Bounce is basically the angle that you create right there. So if you can see it, where the difference between the leading edge and the ground, that angle is your bounce angle, okay, or your bounce. Now, two things that you should remember is that obviously different wedges with different grinds, and some where you open the face, the bounce gets affected more, some less. We're going to look at a neutral wedge. So if I was to open in a bunker and I was to open that club, you can see the bounce is actually increased. Now, what the increase in bounce is doing is it's helping the club to, once it goes into the sand, to bounce off easier. When you talk about chips, when you talk about short chips, let's look at short chips and basic 15 yarders and 10 yarders. Depending on the lie. Now, let's say you've got a lie which is really soft. The ball is sitting up nicely. You can afford to open the club a little more, because the bounce can go under the ball. A drill that I do, and if you'd like to do it, I mean, I do it with my chipping. I teach this, is I never try and feel the leading edge brushing the grass when I'm teaching chipping. I always try and give a feeling of the bounce just brushing the grass. That's why you notice it's a shot. One of my dear friends calls it the no evidence shot, and it's a great shot to have, because in a practice swing, you're not taking any chunks out. All you're doing is you're just brushing the bounce on the surface. Now, if you were to look at it, you were to encounter a soft surface, which we just spoke about, where you can open it so the bounce can get under easily. What if you had a really hard pan lie. Now, what would you do there? You would actually, if you were to open it, when the ball is lying on a hard surface, the club is going to bounce off. It's never going to get under. That's when what I call is you almost kill the bounce, and then you have a bit of shaft lean there. So the leading edge can actually go and hit the ball and get a little under if needed. So bounce can be and can and should be used and understood in terms of it's your friend. You need to use it. Let's say a bunker shot. DLF, we've got a lot of sand in the bunker, and it's not easy. The bunkers are difficult to get out of, but the sand is soft. So there, if you want to open up also, you can, because there's enough club going. But if you open too much, the club will just go under. Hard pans, try and lower the bounce. Softer sand, depending on heaviness, etc., you can open the bounce. So that's how I would use bounce. But for shorter chips, I would definitely have my shaft leaning a little the old school way, shaft leaning a little forward, not too much bounce, and then just make that nice even motion with my arms and shoulders there. Yeah.
There is a question related to weight transfer. I'm having trouble with smooth weight transfer from right foot to left foot from start of the swing to finish. I'm a right-handed golfer.
Can we get that again? I'm having trouble
with smooth weight transfer from right foot to left foot from start of swing to finish. I'm a right-handed golfer.
Okay, so that's a little it's a little broad. So when you say you're having trouble starting from the left side to the right side, a good drill for you would be to take an even setup, take a mid iron, take a mid or a short iron, a 9 iron or an 8 iron, get your ball position right, and do these drills. Just as an advice to everyone else also, when you're working on your swing, do a lot of mirror work, do a lot of work in slow motion, because if you were to do this experiment with a friend of yours and tell him that, can you show me your golf swing in super slow motion like we have on the iPhone, you will see a lot of difference in what he actually does in his golf swing and what he does in slow motion, because it's a very different perception. Now, what happens for you in your case when you're loading onto your right side, a good drill for you is to take it to the top and stay there and feel a lot of coil here in this area. We one of the leading teachers who I really look up to, he even advocates putting a golf ball here and being able to hold it, because that just helps you stay and get all that weight shift onto the right side. Unless you can do this without a ball and feel that position multiple times, you're not going to be able to replicate it when there's a golf ball down there and this pressure. So try and do all these drills without a golf ball when there is minimum amount of pressure. Yeah.
While releasing the swing, how much wrist play is required?
Okay, so the wrist is doing what? The wrist can bend. Yeah, which is the wrist can actually scoop, more like a bunker shot. And then the wrist can release, which is the right arm rolling over the left arm. Now, this is a very personal thing again. It depends on the rhythm of your swing. It depends on the timing at which you hit it. So I've seen some really good players who have actually been a little this way also. And there are some really good players who just go more that way. So it's a very personal thing on how much you want to release, but it also depends on the kind of grip you have. If you look at a Dustin Johnson who's almost bowl shaped here with his left hand and to the top with the short club face, he's not going to look to release too much. In fact, he won't. He just plays a hold off. A lot of good players who have strong grips on tour would be playing hold offs. They're not going to try and do this. Yeah. So I would say wrist release. What you do is get your grip pressure in place and then just allow this motion to happen, a free swinging motion. It's like if I was to stand here and I was to shake your hand and just move this way, my wrist will release naturally. I cannot try and control this and that. So it's just a natural motion. Best practice without a ball and just by free swinging your arms from about 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That'll really help.
The next question is, I break my wrist while hitting. How do I correct that?
Okay, break your wrist while hitting. Is this okay? I'll address both ways. So let's say backswing and downswing. If you look at the backswing, um, I believe the minimum variables you have going to the top of your backswing. Everyone loads the backswing differently, but the minimum variables you have going to the top makes it that much more easy for the swing to move. When I say that, I mean that if I was to teach, or when I teach takeaway, for me, it's a very connected motion. So I don't really like using too much wrist when I start or even teach that. There are players who like doing it, which is fine. But I would say just connect it here. That's my first move, where you can see there's hardly any wrist. I'm trying to get my chest, my shoulders, and my arms moving back together in one motion. And then from there, the next motion that will come in through is just a lifting of the arms and on, and there I've got my backswing in place. So the wrists do set naturally.
I have a strong grip, but have the same issue with my driver. I start on line, but the ball slices after 150 yards of carry line with target. Fairway woods fade a bit, but I get a natural draw with the irons. What I am doing wrong? How can I tackle this?
So with the driver, what you're probably doing is, if you say you start it more or less straight, then your club face obviously is square at impact, and then being a very strong grip, like you said. Now, if you're going with a very strong grip, and what does a strong grip create? It would create a draw or a hook, right? If you've got a strong grip here, and if you with your driver was to release it with that strong grip, you would probably hit the ball just 20, 30 yards left off the tee there. So I would say if you really want to create a natural draw, then there are two things you can do. One is you can start, I won't say make your grip neutral, because a grip change is the hardest change to have. What you can do is a little less strong for the grip and aim a little more right, and then just allow the club to release through. What you're not doing is, because you're strong and you're standing very square to target, there is a fear of releasing which you don't even realize. It's just subconscious because of the way you hold the club, that it will go to the left. So it's just a way of holding off, making it go to target, and then it just slices to the right. So my advice would be aim a little more right of target, um, have a slightly more between neutral and strong grip, a little bit so it's not uncomfortable, and then try and hit a few shots with it. Allow the club to naturally release with the swing.
What's the ideal setup and alignment for a bunker shot?
Alignment for a bunker shot, okay, ideal setup. So what for a bunker shot, what I like doing is not too much of foot movement to start with. So I would have a wide stance. Definitely, I like being wider in the bunker. Open my club face. Get your club face if you want to hit a high bunker shot. Open the face, but when you open the face, allow the face to aim more in line of your intended target. Even though in a bunker shot there is no direct contact between the face and the ball, so we don't expect the ball to move around too much because the sandwich is really throwing it out. What we do want is the club to get underneath the ball. That is the one guarantee that we want in a bunker shot. Now, how you ensure that is, you see a lot of players old school used to go squat down, dig in. Once you dig your feet in, think of what you're doing by digging your feet in. You're actually going below the surface of the golf ball. So if you were to swing, staying below the surface of the golf ball and all else equal, you would naturally go under the ball and create that nice soft shot. Secondly, I do like in a bunker shot, I don't advocate open shoulders, because bunker shots is shallow shot. We don't want to get out and in a bunker shot. So square, and then I just like a lot of wrist work in a bunker shot, depending on the kind of shot I'm hitting. A lot of wrist there, and then just the release. That's the third release that we spoke about, is that motion with the bunker shot. Your club head will always go past the hands. All good bunker players, most of them create that motion where the club head goes past the hands. If you were to ever look at super slow-mo videos of a good bunker player, you'll notice that the club is already gone and the ball is behind the club. And that can only happen when you scooped it very quickly, okay, and the ball is just softly popping out. So that is a good example of a good bunker shot. So be more squatted, dig yourself in, have your shoulders more square. Ball position can vary from the center to the left foot depending on the kind of height that you're looking at. and then just stability. You don't need too much of rotation in a bunker shot. Just try and keep it down and release through. Yeah.
Show an ideal putting setup.
Ideal putting setup. Okay, ideal putting setup would just two most important things. Like I said, aim the ball correctly. Whether you aim correctly, whether you use a line or you comfortable with a point or whatever you like doing, aim your putter correctly. That's one. And second would be try and get your eye line almost on or maybe just inside the ball. That really helps. So two things. Now there are players who are tall who will stand a little more that way, and then there are players who will go really low. So again, a big preference when it comes to putting. It's not a rule. It's a preference. The two things you want to do make sure is that your club face is aligned, putter face is aligned correctly to the target. That's the most important thing. And then obviously, the more your shoulders are lined, the more you're lined up, chances are you will hit a better putt. But again, no hard and fast rule on that.
What is the optimum wrist movement for a stinger shot? How would you recommend hitting a stinger?
For a stinger shot, first thing I would do is I would take loft out of the picture. So I would go with a really low iron, like a 3-iron or a 4-iron. And what I don't want to do in a stinger is I want to hit more like what I do is a knockdown. I advocate is a knockdown where I'm just keeping my wrists very passive through the shot. Because if I tend to release it too much, I mean, yes, if I want to hit a draw stinger like I can't hit it, but the way Tiger does, that's a completely different feel. But a regular stinger would be a low lofted club. Ball position could be back of center, so that we get down on it and start the ball low and try and hold that angle through the swing versus trying to release it, because anything release you'll be releasing would be adding loft to the ball. We don't want that.
Do you advocate a slower backswing leads to a better control for iron play, also known as Matsuyama?
Okay, so that's a good question, and it's something that I think we all relate to. So if you look at all of us as human beings, as personalities, we're all very different. You would see guys who are very jumpy and quick, like a Sergio Garcia. You could see a guy like Ernie Els, who's big, easy. Now, if you look at the difference between their swings, even a Ricky Fowler, uh, your golf swing rhythm is actually it showcases your demeanor and how you are as a person also in a big way. People who are generally very quick, they walk quickly, they move quickly, have that quick back and quick through sort of a rhythm. People who are generally a little more laid back, they walk slowly, they're more relaxed, will have that nice slow loading. Now, for me, I would not say slow backswing. I would use the word rhythmic. So tempo is, you could be the best, you could have the best positions in your golf swing in the world. But if you don't have a good tempo, you will never be a good player. And the best players in the world, what they're able to do is repeat that rhythm and that motion over and over again. And that's what leads to repeatable, consistent, and good contact. So I wouldn't say be a Matsuyama, but yes, what I do advocate, because I see sometimes people start their downswings too quickly, is when you're practicing, a good drill to do is a little pause at the top and then hit. That's only a drill to make sure that you reach the top of your backswing in the most efficient way, and you can feel it. But you don't have to do a Matsuyama. Yeah.
Why doesn't the ball fly in the old man swing?
Ball fly in the old man swing.
Yes, sir.
Because the old gentleman doesn't have enough speed. But to add to the second part, why does the old man hit it much straighter than all of us? Because lesser speed, he puts lesser amount of any kind of spin on the ball. He doesn't carry it too long. And distance, the first thing that you would look at distance is speed and centeredness of contact, right? Now, the old gentleman can swing it 50, 70 miles an hour, but he hits it off the middle, but the ball will not go that far. Whereas someone who's young and hits it off the heel or toe, but swings it at 110 miles an hour, will still hit it a lot longer. So yes, accuracy is more, distance is less, and it's related clearly to his swing speed.
Yeah. The next question is, show us the wrist release position.
Wrist release position in a normal iron shot for me would be there. So at impact, I definitely like feeling my hands ahead. That's what creates a lot of compression on the ball. And the next frame, the wrist is releasing this way. So if you were to look at a position there, the toe is more to the sky. We don't want the toe going this way. That is when we flip our wrists, and we don't want the toe face, club face open, which we create when we're trying to hit a slice. So what you want is a release which feels very square at impact, very flat wristed. The left hand is ahead, club face is behind, and then the release from that point on. That's where you would like to see it. Yeah. So toe to the sky, similar motion on the backswing. You can have connected. The club feels a little hooded, but that is the right position. A lot of people think that is closed. That's not closed. That's actually perfect. You don't want the club doing that, because once you fan it here, you will be very, very that way at the top, and you don't want that face. Yeah.
There's no question, sir. So you can, if you have anything to show us, you can.
You done with the questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, I think we covered all the good questions we had. We've covered almost everything. And what I'd just like to say at the end of the session is, for all of you, is work very, very strongly with your setup. Work on your lines, starting with your grip. That would be the fundamental, because it controls your club face and that controls direction massively. Have a sound grip, have a good club face, and work backwards from the club face when you're aligning. Have all your lines in place. Think of simplest ways. Think of parallel tracks of a railway line. That probably is the easiest way of understanding.
There is a question. I'm just interrupting you.
No problem.
Is it true that your hand should be in the same position during impact as during address?
Your?
Is it true that your hand should be in the same position during impact as during address?
Yes, if you were to think of it, the best players in the world, and when I look at my two favorites, Ben Hogan and Tiger Woods, if you look at Tiger and Ben Hogan's position of the hands at setup, yes, the positions can vary in terms of setup would look like this, and impact would be a little more, would be hips open and the hands a little pressed forward. But if you were to draw and do a simple exercise and draw a circle around both their swings, or even all the good players down the line, you will see that the hands return to that circle every time. That's why you see players who have movements in the swing. Some will be there, which has got high hands, and then there are players who might just get a little under. So yes, that's true. You should have your hands in the same place, setup and impact. Yeah.
Any drill for tempo?
Any drill for
tempo?
I didn't get that.
He has written any drill for tempo.
Tempo?
Yes.
Count in your head, and it's the easiest way to do it. I mean, I would just say go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now that is something that is training your body and mind to hit the same spot over and over again before you start your downswing. So counting in the head is, and now when I say 1, 2, 3, you could be someone who's maybe a bit like Nick Price, who just goes 1, 2. Or you could be someone who's really slow like Matsuyama, who could be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So find your timing, okay, in the head, and then create this for yourself. Again, do it without the ball as much as you can, because you take a lot of pressure off the golf ball and your own self.
Yeah. There's no question, sir.
Yeah.
We can end. So before ending the session, I would like to thank all of you for watching this. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest update. We take this opportunity to appeal to you. If you want to contribute something towards feeding underprivileged children, please contact us. Our number is 84202 40,000. And thank you, all of you, again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Stay home and stay safe. We will see you on the other side of this.